There's a typewriter here. They put these typewriters in some lame locations, I would say. But this is the introduction area. This is the path that Ethan took when he was making his way to the village.
What's all this doing out here?
It's the realm of consciousness. So I'm guessing Beneviento's area was collapsed, or like the controlling influence over Beneviento's area within this realm of consciousness lost control, and now like the memories are merging together. Maybe it's like that. Only it doesn't seem to have hit its magnitude yet. It hasn't hit its peak magnitude yet. It must be a similar concept to what it's like in Union, where depending on who is the controlling factor, like who's actually the core of the system at the time, since Lily was AWOL, the entire area of Union has changed. And by the end of The Evil Within 2, when Myra was the controlling factor and she destroyed most of Union, there was nothing left. And then we see like Sebastian's house right there. Yeah, it must be like that. Oh wow.
Where the hell
Whoa!
is this place?
That looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie, this looks really awesome. I wonder what the parallel scenario is to this in the real world. Like, what is this? Is this supposed to be some mental representation of the fungal network? And what does this have to do with the parasitic colony that makes up the megamycete? Like, why is it that infecting parasites is so important in order to allow these fungal networks to be made? But it looks like a lot of stuff is dropping from these nodes over here, as I'm gonna call them. Or are these like receptors? Like, are these like postsynaptic neurons, presynaptic neurons, receptors, stuff like that? It's the kind of stuff you hear in anatomy and physiology. There's a liquid void over there, and there's a massive sclerotia.
I can sense something from over there.
Head for the giant core. Rose? I wonder if I could have shot those crows and gotten something. Oh. There's a lot of white sage I'm getting. First aid med. Inventory looks fine right now.
They're all just like in the castle.
Yeah, but again, what's the point of this? What are they trying to show right here? Oh, you know what I just realized? Remember how in Resident Evil 7, Ethan is brought into that fungal network of the E-type megamycete, and he's talking with Jack and Zoe. One thing I forgot to mention, we don't see Marguerite, because Marguerite is dead in the real world. So it's like she's wiped out of the network of consciousness. And yet somehow, Evelyn was killed in the real world, and her consciousness is still here. But that is that's a violation of the lore right there. If Marguerite was killed and we don't see her in that realm of consciousness, why is it that when Evelyn died in the real world, she's still persisting on? And maybe because of the fact that we killed the four lords and Miranda, I mean, her memories are still here somehow, but maybe, like, her living consciousness is not here. Like, maybe the living consciousness of all these lords that died outside the realm of consciousness in the real world, maybe that's why they're not here. Maybe that's why we see the Duke, and maybe that's why we see Evelyn, because maybe she didn't die, which doesn't make any fucking sense, of course. But of course, Evelyn isn't really human, though. I mean, she was a pre-stage 4 embryo implanted with the metamycete genome. So she was human at first, but because of the fact that she was implanted with the mutamycete genome, this is what gave her capability. So she's basically a living human with bioorganic capabilities, basically. So maybe that's why we don't see any of the lords, any of their living consciousness. Oh, and they're coming alive. And what do you bet? What do you bet I am going to be able to use an exploit to my advantage? Just what do you bet that is going to be the case? And they're still behaving like Morieka. That's so lame. There have been no good enemy types in this DLC. It's just been reskins. Okay, looks like they can follow me back here. Nice try. Gotta keep moving. Yeah, just want you to keep moving. Must be that. Oh shit! Okay, well that didn't do any, that didn't trigger a grab. Why do I still clip on their bodies? This is so fucking dumb! That's really stupid.
We need to find that crystal.
They're still reusing assets. I was hoping this area would be changed, but we're just repeating the same path that Chris went down. And it just doesn't make any sense that we're only seeing these Morieka, like, reskins again. I mean, the Mutamycete and the Megamycete are considered to be the ultimate, like, vectors for bioorganic weapon research, pretty much. So I should expect to see more enemy types, but we just don't see it at all. Oh, there's the, That's not the Megamycete, that's something else.
Is this where those copies of me came from?
And what? This doesn't make any sense, though. Like, why would they be producing that? It's not like Rose is that special. Like, the Megamycete existed way before her. But somehow Rose's intervention and birth is somehow, like, causing the Megamycete to register her as, like, a queen or something. Some kind of important living organism to take into account. This is so confusing.
Someone's been here.
Miranda has to be. The Megamycete absorbs the memories of all life within its reach, but there are laws which govern this world within it. It seems worthwhile to catalog them as they become apparent. The memories that comprise this realm do not strictly reflect reality, whatever the hell that means. I mean, if you're talking about, like, the way certain environmental features are presented, or you're talking about physics? If you're talking about physics, then that makes sense, but, you know, like what the hell does this mean? That's too vague a statement. Only those who are attuned to the Mutamycete in life retain control of their faculties here in this realm. What? What does that mean? Retain control of their faculties? Like, do they mean, like, identity? Or, like, anything like that? This aligns with my understanding of the Megamycete as revealed to me in its visions before my death. Oh, so Miranda knows she's dead. She knows she's dead, and she's still alive in this consciousness of the Megamycete, but What does this have to do with Evelyn, though? I mean, she knows about Evelyn. I know that. Like I said, Miranda helped create Evelyn with the connections. But that still doesn't explain how Evelyn is here inside of the Megamycete. It's confusing. It's very confusing. Yes, my death. My physical body is gone, absorbed into the Megamycete, and yet I do not despair, for this fate has granted me fascinating insights. All those years I strived, have continued to strive, they are not for nothing. Okay, so that's strange. I mean, maybe it's something specific to the Megamycete itself, because the Megamycete is classified as being able to absorb the genetic data of living organisms. Maybe through that absorption of the genetic data of organisms, it can somehow create this realm shaped by the senses, shaped by memories, because like the genetic data, obviously you need genetic data to even create a body to begin with. And maybe the Megamycete with that genetic data is able to essentially create one possible model for the body. Like using a theoretical model of the body, it uses that genetic data to recreate the senses, to recreate the memories, like at the time of death. And then it uses that to create this realm of consciousness that is shaped by the senses and the like. You know, I mentioned before that it really doesn't make any sense for this kind of realm to exist, like just purely based off of neuroelectric energy, because it most likely needs the organs in order to essentially create the senses, or like to even like process the senses, like to even give like you can't have senses without organs. Basically, you can't have senses without receptors, without pain receptors, without other receptors or the like. But maybe like the genetic data that the Megamycete is able to use allows it to essentially construct this theoretical model of what the senses would have been like, and that's what allows this world to be made from the memories of the organisms it comes into contact with. But it's still confusing, and maybe that's why, even though Miranda is dead in the real world, her consciousness is still living on. And as they said right here, only those who are attuned to the Megamycete in life retain control of their faculties here in this realm. Now, see, that doesn't make any sense now that I realize it, because how is it that Jack knew who he was in Resident Evil 7 when he was in that realm of consciousness after he was incapacitated? Although never mind, because Jack was already alive. Jack was alive in the real world. So was Zoe. So maybe that makes sense as to why it's not a violation of the second point Miranda is bringing up. Because Jack and Zoe were still alive in the real world. Maybe that's why they're able to retain more of their mental faculties. As what Miranda is saying right here. But then what happened to Marguerite then? If Marguerite is dead, what happened to her consciousness? Because clearly it wasn't shown whatsoever. And I mean like, the capabilities of the Megamycete, they aren't so mutually exclusive from the Megamycete's own capabilities when forming its own fungal network. In fact, like the fact that the Megamycete was even able to create a fungal network of its own hive mind, it really brings into contention the uniqueness of the Megamycete in creating this realm of consciousness and with absorbing the genetic data. And I've already discussed this before, but like the Megamycete on its own should already be capable of absorbing genetic data or creating its realm of consciousness, but they're taking those traits and they're saying that only the Megamycete's capable of this, which is so confusing. So I don't agree with Miranda's explanation right here. I think there are some inconsistencies with the file here. The memories, the consciousness, understanding, and knowledge I accumulated in life have transferred here to the Megamycete, where it serves as a source of power within this realm. If I can harness this power, I believe I can use it to affect the thoughts and memories of others. Yeah, but you don't need to harness the Megamycete's power. I mean, Evelyn was already exercising control over her victims. Yet again, they're taking the capabilities of the Mutamycete already displayed in Resident Evil 7, and they're just like, forget all of that. The Megamycete is the only thing that's capable of that. That doesn't make any sense, what Miranda is saying. This document doesn't make any fucking sense. Of course, it's hardly a perfect arrangement. With so many minds and memories gathered here, finding and retrieving a single person from amidst the rabble has proven an immense challenge. Her memories are here, yes, but dissolute. Perhaps what is needed is the right vessel into which to hold her. And of course, I know of the perfect vessel, the only real candidate in all my years of searching. Rosemary Winters. And too bad, Miranda. All of your research on the Kadu was for nothing because Rosemary Winters didn't even get implanted with the Kadu in the first place. Yeah, you're an idiot, Miranda. You're a complete fool. It must have shaken up your fragile ego, knowing that all of your work was for nothing, and that you had to rely upon God's intervention with creating a suitable vessel for Ava through Rosemary Winters in order for your plan to succeed. God, imagine that. I mean, you know, a lot of people complain about Oswald E. Spencer being mentioned in the document in Miranda's lab and how it doesn't make any sense because why would he waste time with viral research if the Mutamycete / Megamycete that Miranda is using is much higher tiered compared to what Oswald E. Spencer was doing. And I would say that the reason why Oswald E. Spencer was even continuing his viral research is because he's an arrogant individual. He has a big ego. And to view his life's work as meaningless would have been a huge blow to his ego, and he didn't want to take his lumps like that. So he wanted to continue his viral research. And furthermore, we don't even know when Oswald E. Spencer even sent that letter to Miranda. Was it before or after the creation of Albert Wesker? Because Albert Wesker on his own was a remarkable BOW, at least when you're thinking about it from the perspective of Oswald E. Spencer. So if that letter he sent to Miranda was after the creation of the Wesker siblings and the creation of Albert Wesker, then you could understand why Oswald E. Spencer was still continuing his research into viruses to try to create this this perfect form of human being in his image so that he can become a god, basically. And that way it wouldn't feel like so much of a blow to his ego because he knows he has laurels to rest on with his successes with Albert Wesker. That makes sense. But, yeah, let me just reread this again. Of course, it's hardly a perfect arrangement with so many minds and memories gathered here. Finding and retrieving a single person from amidst the rabble has proven an immense challenge. Her memories are here, yes, but dissolute. And I'm guessing she's referring to Ava. That's what she mentioned, that Ava's consciousness is inside of the Megamycete. Perhaps what is needed is the right vessel into which to hold her. And I see that line there confuses me because this is the kind of line she would be saying if she was still alive, but she knows she's dead. And it's been 16 years. I mean, like, maybe time flows differently because we know in, like, The Evil Within 2, for instance, when Sebastian points out to Liam that it's been a week since they've been stuck in STEM. Liam was genuinely surprised by that, and he said that time is a little fluid within STEM, so maybe it's a similar process here where time flows very differently inside of this realm of consciousness. And so they don't know how much time is passing. It's almost like when you're close to a black hole and your time is slowed in relation to the universe's time because of the gravity involved with a black hole, basically. Maybe it's something similar here with this realm of consciousness, just psychologically. I mean, like, it's still a very odd line for her to say, because how on earth is she going to even, like, get a vessel if she knows she's dead and she's inside the consciousness of the Megamycete? I'm like, if I could understand her saying that, if after that line she said, all I have to do is wait until someone actually interacts with the Mega Mycete. But like, I mean, like, she needed to use the Mega Mycete regulator / Giant's Chalice. She had to create a lot of notes on this. She had to get a living individual in the real world to be exposed to the Mega Mycete. She had to split that person into 4. So how can she say perhaps what is needed is the right vessel if none of that is possible if she's dead and in this realm of consciousness? It doesn't make sense. This is so confusing right now. And you know what I just realized? I forgot to read the journal. Those dolls were just unspeakably awful. Thank God Michael found me and got us out of there. The moment he brought me here, I felt better. And not just because I'm my usual size. I think this is actually the memory of my parents' old house. Well, I mean, it wasn't actually their house. It was actually provided by the BSAA, so it wasn't technically their house, even though they were there for 3 years. I don't remember... Actually, no, they weren't there for 3 years. Because they were with the BSAA for some unspecified amount of time, and then for the remainder of time they were in this house. So I don't know how long Ethan and Mia were actually inside that house provided by the BSAA. I don't remember this place myself, but it seems to be brimming with memories of my dad. I can really feel his love for me and how much hope he had for my future. It's nice that Rose is acknowledging Ethan Winters right here. But, I mean, why did it take her so long to even mention him? And it was only when the villains were acknowledging Ethan Winters' existence and just his presence that she started talking about him. That's just very weird, especially when she's wearing his jacket. But it's really nice to hear that Rose is understanding the love Ethan Winters had for her. I mean, he went through hell, all of it, just to rescue her. I mean, like... going through like a typical 9-to-5 job or just like being like a normal person inside of society, you're not gonna feel the kind of love that a parent has for a child within the constraints of society. But as soon as you're put into a situation involving a greater evil, like I said, evil is the glue that binds good together. And this is what's allowing Ethan Winters to convey his love to Rose, because of the fact that he sacrificed himself, not for some stupid country full of hillbillies and gun-toting creeps, racist individuals and corrupt politicians, etc., or just like dumb teenagers in school, not for anything like that. Like, you know, like, I seriously question like what soldiers fight for nowadays in the real world, because they fight for that kind of country. And the fact that we're fighting for a government, and not just with government, but we're fighting for racist individuals, we're fighting for evil individuals, we're fighting for people that value like financial benefits more so than morality or like family or the like. Like, that's why everyone is a pile of shit in the real world. That's why when I go out into the real world, everyone has a fucking scary face. I get social anxiety just staring at their faces, because every single face I look at in the real world, if they're strangers to me, it feels like they just want to hurt you. That's just how fucked up society is. Like, Ethan Winters did not die for that kind of fucked up society. He died for something truly valuable. His family, his daughter, his wife. He died for that, while still saving the world in the process. But, like, he satisfied 2 things there, and to bring the Mega Mycete back is so insulting on that kind of level. But it's just great to hear that Rose is actually acknowledging this, finally. Like, only a true father, only someone truly enveloped in love, someone who truly believes in the whole idea of love, would go through hell and high water, risk death, risk pain, like, just being so brave, fighting through your fears to rescue your child. Oh, that's the kind of parent to respect right there. It was so interesting. It was just so emotionally engaging for Ethan Winters. But to make Ethan Winters be made out of the mold, you know, like, I'd lost a sense of attachment to Ethan Winters when I just came to that realization after I beat Resident Evil Village, but I still love Ethan Winters to this day. I cannot connect to other Resident Evil characters after playing Resident Evil 7 and Village. I just can't. I can't be connected to Leon anymore. I can't be connected to Chris. I can't be connected to all those other forgettable characters. Like, Leon and Chris are the only other characters worth connecting to, but nowhere near to the same degree as Ethan Winters. But, like, yeah, that's just great hearing all that, pretty much. And it's just fantastic. Despite some of the lore inconsistencies I've already mentioned previously. But, yeah, it's great to hear that. And, like, I was actually starting to like Rose a lot more when she was actually talking about her dad. And, she was fighting Evelyn. And, like, she didn't feel like so much of an idiot compared to how she was in the castle area. I'm definitely enjoying this part of the DLC a lot more than the beginning area of the DLC. The beginning area was shit. Every single part of it, like throughout the entire castle area, was bad. But this is slightly better. Still doesn't increase my score of this DLC by much. I mean, so far this DLC is a 1 out of 10. And, like, that small amount is just based on Rose and Ethan's relationship with each other, like the father-daughter relationship between the two. But, like, everything else is just garbage. And it sucks that that's the case. Alright, now on to this next journal entry. Evelyn. According to Michael, the girl that's been terrorizing me is named Evelyn. I have no idea why, but she absolutely hates my guts. I should have seen this coming after that masked creep, but she was also lying about the crystal. Fool me once. But if Rose gets fooled again, oh man, won't that be so insulting to her character? But none of that matters now. I'm going to get this... Now she's saying mold instead of mutamycete. But she has been saying mold consistently, so I can't really complain. But just stick to one terminology, please, new Capcom. I'm going to get this mold out of me. I'm going to get friends, and I'm going to be normal. I just wish it was phrased a lot better. I'm going to get friends, and I'm going to be normal. How can she still be thinking about this at 16 years old? I mean, like, the kind of life transition changes that, like, children undergo when they reach a critical stage in their development... Like, this has to occur somewhere in their teens, or like in the tens area, sometime after age 10. But how, like, this kind of line right here, I'm going to get friends and I'm going to be normal, is so cringe. No offense, this line here is very cringe. Like, I just wish, like, this wasn't her prime motivation. I'm going to get friends and I'm going to be normal. Like, just remove the I'm going to get friends part, and just rephrase it with something that is a lot more beautiful in its language. I'm going to be normal, and something else. Like, do something with that, new Capcom. Stop having Rose seem like some 6-year-old contained within a 16-year-old's body. Like, it's so fucking dumb. Like, after all the hell, all the violence she has seen inside of the realm of consciousness, she's still like, oh, I'm gonna get friends. Oh, fuck that bullshit. I hate that so much. That is so fucking retarded on so many levels. Raining ooze. Michael pushed me out of the way. I think I've lost count of the number of times he saved me now. I don't know what's happened to him back there, but I have to press on. I have to find that crystal. I know he'd want me to. This place isn't like anywhere else I've been. Those at least felt like they could exist in reality, but this is different. A strange sky dotted with these creepy black orbs, dripping ooze and all sorts of random junk. I have no idea where this is, but I do know the crystal's here somewhere. I can sense it. Anything else I can see here? Oh, there's more documents here. I have been experimenting with the possibilities of manipulating and reviving the consciousnesses stored within the Megamycete. When a person dies, their consciousness is stored and preserved, but over time it becomes diffused and diluted, spread thin throughout the Megamycete, and mixed with other consciousnesses and memories. Where have I heard this before? I mean, like, I heard about this before in Criminal Minds, but, like, there was a con artist who assumed way too many identities, like, so many fake identities as part of his cons. And eventually, he had no idea as to who he was, as to what his main identity was. So there were a lot of these moments where he would slip. He would do something on par with a Freudian slip, and he would state the wrong name for himself. And that is what caused his cover to be blown. So, in that sense, this makes a lot of sense. And like in the Evil Within as well. Eventually, subjects, when they were within STEM long enough, and Ruvik eventually overtook them, they lost their identity entirely, and they became subservient to Ruvik's will. I'm guessing because of the fact that the willpower of the individual is something important when considering Ruvik's control over his creations and through any infected subjects. I'm saying they're not infected; they're stripped of their identity. Basically, that's why we get enemies like the Haunted, basically. And similarly in Resident Evil 7, they said in the R&D report when you were in that lab, when Ethan was in that lab at the end of Resident Evil 7, they said that Evelyn basically uses mental torture and physical torture, and she basically gets the subjects to do very painful commands, basically. And what this essentially does is it breaks down the mind's natural barriers, and so this makes them more subservient to her will, basically. I mean, they didn't properly establish this with Ethan Winters because how exactly he was able to resist Evelyn's influence, or Evelyn never thought of actually like freezing him, just like what she did with Zoe. That's something that really doesn't make any sense. And when you factor in the fact that Ethan was infected by the Mutamycete, and he still is, it puts this whole situation into question. Ethan only escaped from the Dolby estate because of Evelyn's stupidity. So it's not because of his skill, it's not because of how amazing he is as a character, it's because Evelyn was an idiot. And that is just completely ruining that whole entire scene. It's ruining the entirety of Ethan Winters' character, and it's really retarded like that. But getting back to the main point right here, it makes sense that the consciousness is spread very thin throughout the Megamycete and mixed with other consciousnesses and memories, basically. But, like, although technically Evelyn died 3 years ago in the real world, but I still feel like 3 years is enough for any consciousness to be spread so thin. And furthermore, it really seems like I don't know how time flows within the Megamycete, but maybe Miranda knows how time flows. But like it seems like time within this realm of consciousness is progressing at the same rate as with like time passing in the real world. It's not like the gravitational slowing effect, like the time dilation effect that you hear in physics when you're close to a black hole or something like that. So I'm guessing we're supposed to assume that time within the Megamycete flows at the exact same rate as the real world, which is a little confusing. And really, like, if a person's consciousness is spread so thin, they should be unfamiliar with how much time is passing. That would make a lot more sense. But it seems like Miranda is well aware of what's happening. And despite the fact that it's been 16 years since Resident Evil Village, her consciousness hasn't been spread so thin, which is strange. But again, it might have to do with this right over here. As Miranda said, only those who are attuned to the Mutamycete in life retain control of their faculties here in this realm. So, okay, so that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. That makes a lot of sense. But let's continue with this. Extracting and reassembling an individual who has thus diffused has proved a monumental effort. As an experiment, I decided to see what would happen if I used different individuals' consciousnesses to create an entity. Results. The results were fascinating. I gathered fragments, re-spooled the threads. What threads? What do you mean re-spooled the threads? You're talking about the conscious, like, and furthermore, what are you even, like, measuring consciousness as? Are you talking about genetic data? Because at least, like, when you're talking about, like, a stool sample, when you're talking about a blood sample, when you're talking about, like, spinal fluid, for instance, that's a measurable substance. But how the hell do you measure a consciousness? Why don't you be more clear with that, Miranda? Like, again, this is a cheap shortcut in measurements right over here. I gathered fragments, re-spooled the threads, and succeeded in creating an individual, birth anew in this realm. A success, to be sure, but while his unusual physique resembled a man I once knew. He was possessed of a deeply warped psyche and was missing a portion of his face. Okay, so she must be talking about the Duke. That's why he probably wears that mask. Conclusion: while manipulating memories to create a person is possible, the creations are flawed and unstable. It will not be possible to manufacture a suitable vessel in this way. And either way, the vessel you're creating is inside of the realm of consciousness. What good is a vessel if it doesn't have an impact on the real world? Unless Miranda considers this realm to be the new real world or something. Maybe it's that. Like, maybe she's trying to take control of the Megamycete and she's not focusing on the real world. Maybe it's like that. But it seems like Miranda is going through the same problems like what was experienced previously with the Lords, where we saw their affinity levels. And, like, Moreau, for instance, had a very low affinity to the Kadu. He had no control over it, and that's why his mutation ran rampant. And that's why he couldn't transform back into his normal self after going into that fish form for the final time. And then with Beneviento, Beneviento's affinity for the Kadu. Did I say Kadu for Moreau? Because it was actually affinity for the Kadu. But Beneviento's affinity for the Kadu was low as well, but she had mental instability. And that's why she was considered an unsuitable vessel. And then with Lady Domitresque, her Kadu affinity was high, but she was deemed a failure because of her blood disease. And I'm not too sure how the Kadu slash Mutamycete, or like the Kadu that was infected by the Megamycete slash Mutamycete or whatever, it didn't repair her blood disease for some reason. And then you had Heisenberg, and Heisenberg was considered very high when it came to his affinity for the Kadu. Yet he was still deemed a failure. I don't remember Miranda's reasoning for why he was deemed a failure, but he was considered not good for being a vessel for Ava. But then Rose comes in, and Rose has nothing to do with the Kadu, and the only thing we have to go on is her parents. And Miranda even brings up this question as well. She says, how did Rose come to be? Was it because of her parents? And maybe that's why she was originally studying Ethan, and then she decided to terminate him at that trial, or maybe she still decided to keep him alive, and maybe Ethan's capture by Heisenberg was a surprise to her, and she knew that Heisenberg would fail to keep him from escaping. And so that makes sense when you're transitioning over to the part after Heisenberg's boss fight, where she's talking with Ethan, and she was studying him, but she said his worth as a lab rat had run out, basically. So in that sense, maybe Rose being the way she was had something to do with her parents. But then again, maybe the fact that Miranda's even bringing up that question, that would imply that Rose was actually born with her abilities, rather than having Miranda give her the abilities. Maybe it's like that. I don't know. But I need to reread these documents again just to be sure of whatever this is. I mean, it's still confusing how Miranda is here, but again, it's probably because of her high affinity for the Megamycete. And like, she's been infected with the Megamycete slash Mutamycete. I'm guessing it's the Mutamycete. Like, she's been infected for almost a century, basically. So maybe that's why she has such a high affinity for it. And maybe she had the affinity beforehand, because if she didn't have a high affinity for the Mutamycete, she would have been overtaken by it. But maybe it's different. Like, they're flip-flopping between a lot of these ideas all the time with Resident Evil 7 and Village. But you couldn't say anything about that with Resident Evil 7, minus some minor things. But with Resident Evil Village, they're just flip-flopping all the time, and they're not understanding how the Mutamycete slash Megamycete works. Because it's clear they haven't gone back and actually played Resident Evil 7 to understand how. Unless, like, the Japanese translation's different to the English translation. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe the Japanese translation doesn't have the same errors like the American translation. Because, like, translating from Japanese to English is very hard to do because of the different dialects from Japanese. And the fact that the meanings of certain terminology to the Japanese beforehand, it was different to how we value certain things now. Like, for instance, back then, like, there's a word that means fungus and bacteria Like one word means either fungus or bacteria in the Japanese language, and I'm guessing because back then the Japanese viewed bacteria and fungi as being the same thing, and that's why you see a lot of these weird moments with the documents in Resident Evil 7 where they just use the terms fungi and bacteria almost interchangeably because the translation was so confused from going from Japanese to English because of that meaning to that word. It's that kind of stuff you gotta understand when translating from Japanese to English with these documents. So I don't know. I don't know if the English version of these documents was written first and then translated to Japanese, or if the Japanese version was written first then translated to English. It's unknown. But I remember Anthony Johnson, the lead writer for Resident Evil Village's English version, said that the English documents were written first, but I don't buy that for a second, because the Japanese descriptions in the files are a lot more specific with their details compared to the English version. And the fact that they were neglected on the English version doesn't make sense. So I'm guessing because Miranda was very high with her affinity to the Mutamycete, that's why she's still alive even after death, and maybe it's the same case with although, like, how long was Evelyn? I mean, actually, no. Like, it was back in 2001. Like, they created Evelyn, with Umbrella's or with Wesker's HVAC team or whatever it's called. That team that Wesker sent to Rockford Island and Resident Evil Code Veronica. That same team helped the Connections make Evelyn, basically, or like they helped pioneer the founding research for the Mutamycete, basically. That's what it is. Like that, this was mentioned in the R&D report in Resident Evil 7. But like, does that have anything to do with this? I don't know. But like, it's clear Evelyn has been around for a while. Like, I mean, if she was rapidly aging from the time of birth, then... But see, like, I don't understand how that works with Evelyn, though. Like, with Evelyn, she was implanted with the Mutamycete genome at a pre-stage 4 embryo level, but did that embryo age rapidly into a 10-year-old version of Evelyn? So, I don't know. Like, it's so confusing. Did they describe her as a 10-year-old girl in Resident Evil 7 and Village? They might have mentioned this in the Baker incident report, but I mean, like, I mean, then again, they did go through plenty of series as well. There was the A through D series, and they used that. Like, they basically had to go through a lot of subjects from the A through D series, and but before they got to the perfected E series, and Evelyn was the only E series subject as far as we know. And they did make clones of her. That's how they were able to run their tests with the necrotoxin and with the serum. I mean, not with the serum, though. I would say more so with the necrotoxin. Because you see in the lab at the end of Resident Evil 7, like, there are pictures of what happens when a subject is given the necrotoxin. And, you know, if Evelyn was the only subject, how could they have possibly tested the effects of the necrotoxin? So they must have cloned her. That's the only thing I can think of. But they showed a man in one of the photos, which is very confusing. So maybe there was a male version of a clone? Like, there was a male clone of Evelyn? I don't know. It's so confusing with that. They don't explain it very well. They should have given more lore in Resident Evil 7, in all honesty. I mean, like, Evelyn, how long was she around? That's the question. Because, like, she wasn't around as long as Miranda. Like, Miranda, I could understand if we're relying upon this second point to dictate logic. So, like, Miranda's been infected by the Mutamycete for over a century, so it makes sense that she would be more attuned to the Mutamycete. But again, like, if she wasn't heavily attuned to the Mutamycete, she would have already died upon infection or after a certain amount of time, but it's different with her. It's strange. And then, like, Evelyn, we don't know how long it was between Evelyn's birth and her escaping from the HSS Annabelle. We don't know how long that is, basically. That's what's very confusing. So it seems odd that Evelyn would be one of the subjects who's heavily attuned to the Mutamycete, yet if you've seen her abilities, like, she she didn't really have the best of control over her abilities. In fact, a lot of the creations that she made and a lot of her control over the Metamaisi was spontaneous at best, not exactly under her control. Like she was vomiting a lot, basically, and her chromosomal abnormalities with rapidly aging caused her to physically degrade as well. So her affinity for the Metamaisi was pretty low. And like I compare her to Beneviento in my review as well, but it's a lot to explain, but you'll hear it when I get to my review. But you'll understand that there are similarities between Evelyn and Beneviento, so maybe like Evelyn's affinity for the Metamaisi was low on the same levels as Beneviento's affinity for the Kadu, but the Resident Evil podcast team said that was not the case, and like she did have high affinity for the Metamaisi, but I don't remember the main reason. I'll have to like rewatch the video I made to understand what they said specifically. But yeah, if I can harness this power, I believe I can use it to affect the thoughts and memories of others. But like she's saying that as if she wants to influence the real world, but how can she do that? It doesn't make any sense. Like the only thing I can think of is that maybe like at the end of this DLC, she'll try to overtake Rose. But also, like, this whole sentence here, if I can harness this power, I believe I can use it to affect the thoughts and memories of others. Like, it's clear that Miranda, she has maternal desire. She has an extreme maternal desire to mother Ava. So what does this have to do with the creation of Ava? That's what I don't understand right here. Maybe it's because I didn't read like the previous part, so I'm just forgetting what I read. Because I'm just kind of skimming through this, and I'm skipping out on stuff, even though I did read it out loud. But like, everything Miranda is saying here, it just feels like this was the original plan before she died. That ultimately failed when Ethan Winters defeated her. And he blew up that M2 explosive that Chris embedded within the Megamycete. I mean, this could be I mean, it's not her memories though, because she's saying guess my death, unless she made this like did she make this before actually dying, and she's like writing about it as if she did die, so that when she did come into the consciousness of the Megamycete, she would actually read this and realize that she was dead, and that like if I were me, I would have written about this like I did die before I actually died. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know, guys. Like the wording on this is so confusing with the way she's written this. I better make sure I don't miss out on any documents as well, because I remember I missed out on an important journal in my blind playthrough of Resident Evil Village. So she's clearly creating individuals within the Megamycete that she's describing with the Duke right over here. I wonder if she mentions Evelyn at some point. We'll have to see. I mean, she says the creations are flawed and unstable, which is the same result she was getting in the real world. There's a lot of documents here. This is clearly the end of the game, if they're using this kind of heavy-handed storytelling right here, because that's what they did last time, where they force-fed you a lot of lore information at the end of the game. So we only go to 2 areas. We're in the castle area and then Beneviento's area, and it turns out Evelyn is actually controlling Beneviento's area. Maybe she related to Beneviento more, and that's why she was the ruler of that area. I don't know. I had intended to duplicate Rosemary Winters with the hope that a perfect replica might serve as a suitable vessel. However, the results were less than ideal. It would seem that some sort of interference is preventing me from creating a suitable replica. Oh, No. Like, if Rose's abilities were at birth, then it makes sense that Ethan might have accidentally passed on a bit of Evelyn to her. Instead, I have succeeded in making what is essentially a living doll. It resembles the real thing, but it has no power. Such a pathetic husk could never prove suitable as a vessel. I will continue my efforts in hopes of discerning the source of this interference. Several hypotheses have come to mind thus far. The fact that Rose herself is still alive, some other actor within this... Is that supposed to say factor, not actor? I think it's supposed to say factor, not actor. Okay, that's a typo. Some other factor within this realm, a flaw in my methods of production. None of these seem especially likely to be the sole reason, nor are any of them easy problems to solve. Perhaps my best hope is to somehow bring Rose into this realm. Were she to operate herself as a vessel, it would be so simple. Okay, okay. Yeah. But again, like, if she's originally intending to duplicate Rosemary Winters, what use will that be if it doesn't affect the real world? Hmm. Additional observations. Further experiments with these Rose copies, as I've taken to calling these husks, have yielded another interesting wrinkle to pursue. When subjected to situations evoking extreme terror, they actually begin to express some semblance of Rose's abilities. At least she uses abilities and not powers. Thank God for that. This warrants more research, and I think that my first creation, the Masked Duke, is just the one to perform this stress test. Oh, I get it. She's trying. Like, that's why he was hunting the Rose copies throughout the castle. So he was just. I mean, in fact, we actually read this in the document.
They couldn't have been watching me the entire time. Could they?
Like, remember in this file right over here. Yeah, he says right here, with this I am certain I will be able to fulfill your expectations and get you the results you so desire. And he's not acknowledging Miranda in this diary entry, the Masked Duke's diary. He's not mentioned it. So, why does he not mention Miranda here in this diary? And why is this titled Little Girl's Diary? It's weird. Okay, on this realm and its laws, on the recreation and manipulation of memory, on vessel synthesis. It would seem that at some point during my experiments with consciousness, an intruder made herself at home in my realm. This intruder was none other than that failure Evelyn, who has been running about enacting her own pitiful agenda, which has led to a slight disruption in my own plans. Had Evelyn not interfered, Rosemary Winters would have been on the verge of despair, dispossessed of her will to live and her mutamycete powers. And now she's saying powers, which is stupid. Instead, a new passion burns within her. I shall have to extinguish it. I'm confused with the third paragraph right here. Why is she not phrasing it as, had Evelyn not interfered, my dear Ava would have been returned to me, and Rosemary Winters would be gone? I don't understand what that part right there. And you know what as well? You know what I just realized? This document right here, only those who are attuned to the mutamycete in life retain control of their faculties here in this realm. The lords were abducted as kids. Heisenberg said this. He said, she took us to be her children. She locked us away in the village. Decades of being forced to serve her. Can you even understand that humiliation? So, they've been infected by the Kadu / mutamycete, and like it had to have been infected by the mutamycete. Like Miranda said this in her diary in that lab of hers. So how come they aren't attuned to the mutamycete through the Kadu? Like, why are they not in this realm? And like, why are they not able to retain control of their faculties? That's confusing. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, like, that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, and to be honest, so like the whole idea of even like being present within this consciousness after death, even after being absorbed. You die and then you get absorbed into the megamycete and your consciousness is somehow alive, yet this wasn't the case with the mutamycete at all. I mean, like, it has to be like something specific to the megamycete, as I've already explained. But like, what exactly, which event is Miranda referring to here? Is she referring to when Rose was inside the megamycete regulator, and she picked up Rose and thought it was Ava, but it wasn't, and then her abilities are being drained away from her? Like, that had to do with Evelyn? Like, did Evelyn have a hand in that, or is she referring to What is it? I don't know. I think it's specifically with that event. But she's talking about it as if I don't know, like this third paragraph is phrased as if it's meant to occur right now, as if Miranda's referring to the events right now, not from 16 years ago. So when did Evelyn interfere today? She didn't interfere with anything. We just happened to stumble into Beneviento's area that Evelyn had taken refuge in, and we were attacked by her, but she wasn't interfering with Miranda, so I'm confused. So it has to be from 16 years ago. It must have been that. That is so confusing. They're stacking me up on ammunition, which means this is going to be a damage sponge fight. And these copies are just being absorbed into that liquid void. There's some white sage. You know, like, I'll have to reread the documents from the main game of Resident Evil Village to better understand whether these documents can be credible or not.